Hello, I'm Jared Weaver, the Flying Wood Turner. Great day for flying today. We had a good time. The airplane worked fine. We put it to bed, and now I'm going to go home and do some work on the lathe. See you there. This project started out as a tree branch from a Texas umbrella tree that grows in our front yard. So what I've done is I've taken this one, the big one to start with, and found the center of the blank as close as possible. Then I draw lines. I drew the first line here for number one, down out to the end of the blank. Then I marked that, took a square, and used the square to find the bottom. I know it doesn't look like they're lined up here, but that's the fault of the camera. And then started drawing the lines down here again, finding the center as close as possible. And then there's number one. Now the next question is, since I'm going to be making offset turnings, how far do I want to do that, and how close in do I want? The further out, the more exaggerated this will be. The closer in, the closer it'll be to a cylinder. And so I did it about halfway, just judging by eye, made another circle, and then I started out with a protractor and made lines or 120 degrees from the number one line. Make two of them so that that's the 3 points that I'll be making. It's critical you number them the same on the top and the bottom. And so this is number one, this is number two, that's number three. And I've got the same things going up here. That's number one, that's number two, and that's number three. So that's the biggest problem here. I'm going to do the layouts on the other two. All of this is spindle turning, so the turning itself will be very easy. Now that I've got all the layout lines made, the next thing to do is to turn these tree branches round. Tree branches never grow in an exact circle, at least I've never found any that did. They always are elliptical, especially ones that had to fight the wind, as this tree has had to do. So you'll notice this is narrower that way than that way. So I'm going to be turning these things round first. Okay, one down, two to go. The other two are smaller, so it won't take quite as long, and they shouldn't have as big a bow in them as this one did, so it should be a little easier on those. Before we start doing the staggered turnings, the next thing that Barbara Dill mentioned was to turn a tenon on both sides of the blank. And this is not a tenon for a 4-jar chuck. It's a tenon to basically be a depth gauge for how far down you want to go as you're turning this with the spindles in not parallel holes. So she didn't say how far down you make that. The only thing she said is that she wanted it to be not so far that it would cause the live centers to blow out of the holes. So the rest of it's artistic. So I took my calipers and I am making my depth for the tenon about like that. We'll see if that works. I'm just making all this up based on one video, but we'll see what happens. So I will make the tenons, and then we'll start working on making the sculpting of this piece. Now it's time to put this on in the offset positions. So if you remember, I have them laid out here. So when I put it on, I put this center on number 1 and this center on number 2. So I start with 1 to 2. Then when I finish that one, I will go to 2 to 3. And then I'll go over here 3 to 1. That'll be the 3 sides of this flute. So when we put it on, one thing to watch out for is that it is extremely out of balance. So 1 to 2. And I don't have toothed drive wheels. Everything's done on the friction. So it takes a fair amount of friction here. And I have to be careful that I don't blow out the holes because the depth gauges are so close. So I have to be very careful, which means the cuts that I'm going to be taking here are going to be extremely slight, very small cuts. So we set up this so that it's square to the bed rails and that it doesn't hit. Now then I turn the speed all the way down, stand to the side, because if this thing throws off, I don't want to be hit, and start it up here. I bring the speed up until the lathe starts bouncing. And in this case, that's about 350. So, since I am doing extremely out of balance, slow speed, to compensate for that, I have to make sure my gouges are extremely sharp. So I will hone my roughing gouge, and I will start working on this very slowly, very patiently. My diamond card. And I will stop quite often and re-hone this so that it stays as sharp as possible. Safety shield on. I find that starting in the center and moving out is the best way to go with this. Okay, that's got the first side done. Well, it's probably not the best that could be done, but it may be the best that I can do. A little bit of problem on this end. I'll probably fix some of that with the sanding. At least I hope so. I've got all of the blanks cut in the twist. You can see the twist on this one. This is the middle-sized one. I've got the big one, the little one. And it only took me 2 tries in each blank to get them where I wanted them, which means I destroyed other blanks. But that's the way things go in wood turning. You start a new project, you spend a lot of time doing destroying wood, basically. So now is the time for sanding. And the one thing you don't want to do is spin the blank while you're sanding, because if you do that, you're going to ruin these ridge lines. So at least that's what Barbara Dill said. And she's probably ruined a lot of them, so I'm going to take her word on it. So what I'm doing, I'm mounting it on the lathe just to have a place to put it, because it makes it easier to sand. And I will be using my 2-inch discs on my angle drill and just using the lathe to hold it. And I will do the sanding as it's needed. I won't show you much of that because sanding is boring even for people who like to sand. Because I'm sanding, power sanding, even if I were hand sanding, I don't want to get that dust in my lungs, so I have my face shield with my HEPA filter, positive pressure mask set up. I'm wearing that. I'm just trying to be nice and safe and try to stay on this planet as long as I can. I've sanded these smooth to 320 grit. Based on how the wood looks, I think if I went to the end of 400 grits, it would start pulling stuff out of the grain. I don't want to do that. This is nice and smooth. I like this, the way it looks. Now I need a way to mount it to a board somewhere, and I have this scrap piece of walnut. I think it's going to make a nice contrast to the wood of these candlesticks. So what I have done is I made a equilateral triangle, the width of this board, and then I took a compass, and each point of the triangle I drew a arc that's actually mirroring the cross section of these candles. So what I will do is set these up where I think they'd be artistically good on this piece, keeping plenty of room for the cutout, because once I cut it out, I will use a router to put an OG edge on it. And then I will lay out holes for tenons, round tenons, and then I'll do that with Forstner bit, and then I will make that'll be the mortise, and the tenon I'll make here on the edge, put these back in the lathe on centers, cut down a tenon to be the exact width as the Forstner bit, so that I can glue them up. This is the size of the hole that is going to go into the base. These will go into and be glued into. And I also use this to hold them in the chuck so that I can then drill the holes for the electric candles. So I'll mount these up on the chuck, and I will drill. And it's fortunate that the candle is just about a little bit higher than the width of this entire drill bit. So that's going to be very nice. It'll stand just a little bit proud, and I think that will look good. So let me put these together and drill them. Here it is, all signed, sealed, and delivered. I've got it all put together.